Hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DDI India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds talks with his Vietnamese counterpart in New Delhi. Several agreements inked between the two sides, including those aiming to boost Hanoi's maritime security. Indian stock markets begin the month of August on new record highs. BSE Sensex closes at lifetime peak of 81,867.55 and broader Nifty also scales Mount 25,000 for the first time. Israeli military confirms the elimination of head of Hamas's military wing, Mohammed Daif. India issues advisory for its citizens, asks not to travel to Lebanon. 3 US citizens jailed in Russia, including Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, are set to be released under a global prisoner exchange deal involving 24 inmates in 7 nations. And in the Paris Olympics, India's Swapnil Kale wins historic bronze in 50-meter rifle 3 positions. Medal contenders Satvik and Chirag crash out in the quarters. India and Vietnam signed several memoranda of understanding on Thursday aimed at enhancing bilateral relations and regional cooperation in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Vietnamese counterpart Tham Minh Chinh, who is on a 3-day state visit to New Delhi. Now, this has come after both leaders held talks to further expand the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries, including Hanoi's maritime security.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh jointly inaugurate Army Software Park at Telecommunications University, Nha Trang in Vietnam.
हमारी एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी और हमारे इंडो पैसिफिक विजन में वियतनाम हमारा महत्वपूर्ण पार्टनर है। इंडो पैसिफिक के बारे में हम दोनों के विचारों में अच्छा सामंजस्य है। हम विस्तारवाद नहीं, विकासवाद का समर्थन करते हैं।
The Prime Minister of Vietnam, who is on a 3-day visit to India, was accorded a ceremonial reception at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan, the President's house. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received his Vietnamese counterpart at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The two leaders shared a warm hug as they greeted each other. He then inspected a guard of honor by the Combined Defence Services. The two countries have also signed a range of memorandums of understandings to strengthen their relations, which include MOU for cooperation in customs capacity building, MOU for cooperation in agricultural research and education, MOU for cooperation in the legal field, MOU between India's Prasar Bharati and Voice of Vietnam for cooperation on radio and television, $2 credit line agreements of $300 million. Letter of intent for conservation and restoration of F block in Mai Son, Quang Nam province in Vietnam. MOU for cooperation in the field of medicinal plants. MOU for cooperation and development of National Maritime Heritage Complex in Gujarat. To highlight the significance of growing ties between their countries, the two leaders spoke about the rich historical and cultural ties along with shared heritage between India and Vietnam.
हमारी साझा सांस्कृतिक धरोहर के संरक्षण के लिए भारत वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट मी सोन के ब्लॉक एफ के मंदिरों के संरक्षण में सहयोग देगा। हम भारत में बुद्धिस्ट सर्किट में वियतनाम के लोगों को आमंत्रित करते हैं और चाहते हैं कि नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय का लाभ वियतनाम के युवा भी उठाएं।
We believe that under the leadership of His Excellency Prime Minister Modi, in his third consecutive term, India would continue to bring about greater benefit to the Indian people, achieve even more splendorous successes in the future and achieve Viksit Bharat 24/7.
Strengthening of the strategic ties by the two nations is expected to give both the countries an added boost to the Asian bonhomie and India's Act East policy. Akshay Dongre, DD India.
Now let's get you some more details on the MOU between India's Prasar Bharati and Voice of Vietnam. This was mentioned in the report that you just saw. Now, parties to exchange radio, television programs and documentaries in fields of culture, education, news. Parties to exchange science, entertainment, sports, history and tourism news. The programs are to be exchanged via an email of the Focal Contact or FPT server. They will be subject to contractual and intellectual property laws. Both parties to broadcast these exchange products on radio, television and digital platforms. Exchange of programs is subject to commercial agreements. Parties are free to broadcast programs provided on or payment basis without change in their structure. Exchange of programs is subject to commercial agreements as well, as I had mentioned. In case of exchange of on commercial basis, terms and conditions shall be determined by the parties. Receiving party is not allowed to supply programs to third party for broadcasting without prior consent. Both parties are to explore co-production opportunities related to matters of mutual interest. Participation in significant events, festivals and competitions will also be arranged. Now, parties may mutually exchange personnel and provide training to staff too. Both parties are to nominate focal contact to supervise and further discuss implementation of this MOU. And while in India for 3 days, Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh called on India's President Draupadi Murmu at President's House or the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. The visiting dignitary also met India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar. Both leaders reflected on the diverse aspect of India-Vietnam bilateral relations with focus on strengthening economic cooperation and people-to-people ties between the two countries. And we'll return to the story with our special expert guest as well a little later in the show. For the time being, we'll move on. Now, the Israeli army has confirmed that Hamas's top military commander, Mohammed Daif, was killed in an Israeli air raid in southern Gaza on the 13th of last month. The confirmation has come a day after the group's political leader was eliminated in Tehran. Take a look at this report.
The Israeli Defense Forces on Thursday confirmed that a top Hamas military leader, Mohammed Daif, was killed in Israeli strikes in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, in July. The news came just when thousands had gathered in Iran for the funeral of the Hamas political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated on Wednesday. The visuals on your screen are from a video released by Israeli army. A statement released said that fighter jets struck in the area of Khan Yunis and the death of Daif was confirmed following an intelligence assessment. Hamas did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the Israeli announcement. Daif was believed to have been one of the masterminds of Hamas's October 7 attack on southern Israel, which triggered the Gaza war, now in its 300th day. Following the death of Hamas group's political leader Haniyeh, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that he cannot predict the impact of the Hamas leader's killing on the ceasefire agreement.
It remains manifestly the case that ceasefire is in the interest of everyone. It's in the interest of Israelis. It's in the interest of Palestinians. It's in the interest of the region. So as long as everyone is focused on what their core interests actually are, I believe that not only will we keep working to reach a deal, we will reach a deal because it is simply imperative that we do so.
Meanwhile, India has advised Indian nationals against traveling to Lebanon in view of recent developments and potential threats in the region. The Indian embassy in Lebanon wrote on X that all Indian nationals are strongly advised to leave Lebanon. Those who remain for any reason are advised to exercise extreme caution and remain in constant contact with the embassy. The Indian embassy in Beirut can be reached through email ID or the emergency number is +961 768 60128. At a time when the blame game continues, people are still hopeful that they will get united with their families soon. Marking the 300th day of their loved ones in captivity, the families of hostages held by Hamas since October 7 blocked the main highway in Tel Aviv in hope that the talks would resume to agree on a deal that would release their family members. To keep memories alive, some parents of victims of the Hamas attack are offering guided tours at the Nova Musical Festival site to provide first-hand accounts and commemorate their children's lives. The initiative aims to counter misinformation and preserve the integrity of the victims' stories. Bureau Report, DD India.
Israel is on a high state of alert. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that on Thursday amid growing expectations that Iran or its allies will retaliate for the killing of senior leaders of Hezbollah and Hamas earlier this week.
Israel is highly prepared for any scenario, both defensively and offensively. We exact a very heavy price for any act of aggression against us from any arena. After we eliminated the day before yesterday the military chief of Hezbollah, today came the final confirmation of the elimination of Hamas military chief Mohammed Deif. Deif was responsible for the terrible massacre of October 7 and also for many murderous attacks against the citizens of Israel.
Let's get you more on this developing situation. DD India Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv for the latest. Good evening to you, Sarah. Now, how strong is the tinderbox feeling in Tel Aviv and in the wider region with all that's been happening of late?
Hello there, Gautam. It is a very eerie feeling here on the ground in Tel Aviv. I'm not sure if you can actually see just behind me here. These beaches are normally packed on a Thursday afternoon. This is the end of the working week in Israel. It's also the summer holidays for children. So normally these beaches behind me would be absolutely pumping, but there is nobody around. There's barely any cars on the streets, anyone walking on the streets. People are fearful over what could potentially come next. Now, you did mention the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's been holding a situational assessment over these last few hours. He's met with the head of the Home Front Command here in Israel, also the National Emergency Authority. Some very strong words coming from Netanyahu. He said on X that Israel is at a very high level of readiness, both defensively and offensively. He says we will exact a very high price for any act of aggression from any arena. So this, of course, is very, very worrying given the threats we've been hearing, not just from Iran, but also from Hezbollah. And it is very important to mention that Hamas has also called for a day of rage right across the region tomorrow to coincide with the burial of the former head of its Politburo, Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed in Tehran on Wednesday.
Now, the U.S. Foreign Secretary, Sarah, has refused to speculate about the fate of the ceasefire deal and the hostages. But what kind of efforts are being made to de-escalate the situation and who all are pitching in?
We are really seeing diplomacy at another level. Foreign ministers, prime ministers, presidents speaking with Israel. We do know that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, he will be speaking with US President Joe Biden a little later today to really try and assess the situation, work out a plan, because we do need to remember here that the United States did come out just a couple of days ago to say that whatever happens, it will stand beside Israel. It's certainly a fairly worrying time here on the ground, given what we have been hearing from Iran and these proxies around the region. And we also need to think about citizens in this area who are not Israelis. They have been told to get out. We're speaking here about Australians, British, French, and also there is a very limited window for these people to do so. There have been flights, airlines cancelling, suspending their tickets. So certainly it is very worrying, and this is why we're hearing these urgent calls for diplomacy amid a lot of fear that there could become a wider scale war in this region, which of course could draw in the United States.
All right, India has also issued an advisory to people of Indian origin, its diaspora in Lebanon, to if they're there to stay put, and if they're planning to go there to cancel their visit. This is not the right time at all, but let's hope that all those who are trying to ensure that things do not escalate have some success in that endeavor. On that note, thank you for joining us for the moment. Sarah Coates from Tel Aviv. Now, still to come on DD India News Hour. The first court appearance of the 17-year-old charged with murdering 3 girls and attempting to murder 8 other children and 2 adults in Monday's knife attack in UK's Southport. Monsoon mayhem hit several parts of North India hard, even as search and rescue operations are intensified in Kerala after torrential rains as the death toll mounts. And Indian share markets have begun the month of August on new record highs and mounting higher hurdles.
The connection between the wellness of our planet and our own well-being is more direct than we tend to believe. Let's explore more ways of helping the nature and in turn helping ourselves.
So tigers are water babies. If the forest is degraded, you will not have perennial water bodies. As in, the streams will dry out and therefore you don't have tigers.
These are all valuable to our economy, but they aren't valued in our economy. Nature like this is being left out of the equation.
Litter on the street always infuriated Malarvari Muthu and her daughter-in-law Rajavalli Rajiv. They thought that people might not throw their garbage on the street if they could get money for it instead. And that's how the idea for the garbage bank was born.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, in what could be a breakthrough development, certainly appears to be that way. A Russian government plane landed in the Turkish capital of Ankara on Thursday, shortly after the Turkish National Intelligence Agency said it was coordinating an extensive prisoners swap. It was not clear who was on board the plane, which arrived following signs of a major prisoner exchange involving Russia and Belarus on one side and the United States, Germany and Slovenia on the other. Meanwhile, as part of this prisoner swap, Russia is releasing Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan. And in the latest, U.S. President Joe Biden in a statement has informed that 3 Americans are returning home. Let's take you across live to DD India's Dasha Chernashova in Moscow for more on this. Now, Dasha, good evening. What more can you tell us about this prisoner swap? Well, breakthrough really, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. It is the largest in scale and scope prisoner swap over the course of the past decades between Russia and the United States. The total of 26 people are involved into this prisoner swap, 16 Westerners as well as 10 Russian nationals who are being swapped. We understand that the negotiations have not been easy and they have been utterly secret all throughout the past months and particularly the past weeks. Keep in mind that this deal has become possible after the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, who has been accused in Russia of espionage for the United States, was actually, his trial was concluded and that was a hasty trial, and this is when we got the sense that this deal could be on the table. There were only 2 hearings in his case and now eventually we're hearing that this deal is now done and the exchange has taken place in Turkey. We also understand that the Kremlin is not willing to provide any comments. The spokesman for the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, said that the Kremlin was hopefully going to provide any statement later in the day. However, he also said that all those people who are against Russia should stay outside the country and those who are for Russia will be coming back home. We also understand that as part of this deal, Russia is releasing not only Evan Gershkovich but also former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan. He was also accused of espionage in Russia. There are also other prisoners who also who are labeled often by the opposition politicians in Russia as political prisoners, such as Ilya Yashin, labeled as foreign agents, such as Vladimir Kara-Murza. They are Russian nationals, even though Kara-Murza has dual nationality, Russian and British citizenship. They will be going back to the Western countries, and also Russia will be getting back in return several of its nationals, and primarily Vadim Krasikov, who has been accused of the assassination of a Chechen leader in Germany, and he is believed to be the top wanted man in Russia because he is the one for whom we understand this whole deal has been arranged for primarily. But there are also other nationals from Russia, 10 of them in total, who will be coming back. They also involve 2 spies who have been detained and arrested in Slovenia. They will be coming back to Russia. So indeed, a very breakthrough deal has been in the making for months, and now finally it is taking place. But indeed, we are waiting for the comments from the Kremlin to shed the light onto how this process has been conducted, because the logistics and the process are incredibly complicated. They involve 7 countries.
Yes, certainly. Now, how critical is the timing of this deal, particularly when one talks about the stage of the conflict in Ukraine and campaigning fever rising related to the US presidential elections?
Yes, indeed. The timing is critical here. We also have heard from the former U.S. President Donald Trump, who is running again, that if he were president, then he would be able to negotiate with Vladimir Putin easily. But Moscow decided not to wait for that moment to come, and to make this deal at the moment. We also understand that over the past months, we've seen an increased optimism over the possibility of the negotiations between Moscow and Kiev, and for that we have seen several negotiating missions undertaken by various world politicians. So indeed this deal is taking place and is showing that the talks are possible and negotiations could actually be taking place between Moscow and Washington. And Moscow does believe that it is ultimately with the West and with Washington that it will have to be negotiating on the settlement of the conflict in Ukraine.
Yes, that does really comment on how things can really be worked out despite all sorts of adverse circumstances, and maybe that process can be built upon further towards peace for and in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia as well. But let's see what happens next. Thanks a lot for joining for us. For the moment, Dasha Chernashova from Moscow. Now, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced a national body to prevent violent disorder in the wake of 2 days of violence by protesters across the country. Starmer said a system of shared intelligence, facial recognition technology, preventative action and criminal behavior orders will help stop that before potential criminals can even board a train. He also warned social media companies that allowing fake information to spread online will not be allowed. And DD India's Stuart Smith reports from London on the very latest as far as this entire set of tragic events is concerned and developments that have taken place thereafter.
In his first televised address to the nation on the Southport stabbings, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer described Monday's knife attack as so inexplicably vile that fear is an understandable reaction. He warned the nation that speculation and misinformation, which could prejudice the trial that began on Thursday, ultimately harms the victims that justice is meant to support. He described the rioters as a gang of thugs that got on trains and buses, went to a town grieving from the most horrific tragedy, and then threw bricks at police officers who just 24 hours earlier were having to deal with an attack on children in their community. In reference to the second day of disruption, meters from Downing Street in London, he listed flares being fired at a statue of Winston Churchill and a Nazi salute near a war memorial as examples of the disorder he was trying to stop. He said he will not permit a breakdown of law and order on the streets, characterizing the riots not as protest but crime and violent disorder. The The attacker who killed 3 children was in court earlier, and for the first time we've had official comment on his mental health. The prosecution telling the court the defendant had an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis and that he had been unwilling to leave the house and communicate with family for a while. The judge also released his name as Axel Rudakabana, a rare move in the English justice system for those under 18, with misinformation rife about the attacker's background, religion and immigration status. The judge said that continuing to prevent full reporting at this stage has a disadvantage of allowing others to get up to mischief to continue to spread misinformation in a vacuum. The defendant will be in court again in late October. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Now, the Bank of England has cut interest rates from a 16-year high on Thursday following a narrow vote among policymakers who were divided on whether inflation pressures had eased sufficiently. Governor Andrew Bailey led the 5-4 decision to lower rates by a quarter point to 5%.
It was a finely balanced decision. Inflation has been exactly on our 2% target for 2 consecutive months. And inflationary pressures in the UK economy have eased much as expected. Now, at the same time, the UK economy has been stronger in recent months, and this is very welcome too. But it does add to the risk that inflation could be higher than we expected if we cut interest rates too much or too quickly. And despite easing, services price inflation and domestic inflationary pressures do remain elevated. So we need to make sure that inflation stays low.
One will have to wait and see if this triggers other central banks to lower interest rates as well, starting perhaps with the US Fed in September. Now, Indian share markets on Thursday achieved new record highs, with Nifty breaching 25,000 mark after gaining 92.15 points in opening trade. The BSE Sensex also surged to a record high of 82,082 after opening at 81,949.68 points with a gain of 208.34 points. DD India has spoken with NSE MD and CEO Ashish Kumar Chauhan about what's happened today.
Nifty has cleared 25,000 at the close, which is a very important milestone for Nifty and also for the country. And it also shows some confidence in the sort of new government, which is also in a way showing continuity because they have been there for 10 years and this is a show of confidence for next 5 years too. Overall, the Nifty price, Nifty has given returns over last 1 year of more than 26% compared to Standard & Poor's, which has done 20%, and Sensex, which has done around 22%.
A collision took place between a Sri Lankan naval vessel and an Indian fishing boat on Thursday. The incident took place 5 nautical miles north of Kachativu Island. Out of the 4 Indian fishermen on board, 1 has died and another is missing. 2 fishermen have been rescued and taken to Tankesanthurai. A search is underway for the missing fishermen. Indian consulate officials in Jaffna have been instructed to go to Tankesanthurai and assist the fishermen and their families. The Sri Lankan Acting High Commissioner in New Delhi has been summoned to the Ministry of External Affairs. A strong protest has been registered, expressing shock and sorrow over the loss of life. The Indian High Commissioner in Colombo will be addressing the issue with the Sri Lankan government later. The government of India has emphasized a humane approach to the issue of fishermen and insists on adhering to existing agreements. Efforts will be made to prevent recurrence and avoid the use of force. Safety and security of Indian fishermen is a top priority. This issue has been raised frequently with Sri Lankan leaders. That's what India's Ministry of External Affairs has said. Search efforts in Kerala have intensified after landslides in Wayanad killed over 180 people. The Indian Army has built a Bailey Bridge. The Air Force, National Disaster Response Force and state agencies are coordinating relief and evacuations. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has expressed condolence about those who've died in this unfortunate tragedy in Kerala. In a statement issued by the White House, Joe Biden said that he prays for the victims of this tragic event. Elsewhere, heavy rains have also impacted Delhi. Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, causing severe disruptions and casualties.
The search operation has been intensified in Kerala as efforts to continue to locate those missing following the landslides that struck two villages in Wayanad district. The death toll has risen over 180. Indian Army battalions have rapidly constructed a Class 24 Bailey bridge to facilitate relief efforts. The Indian Air Force, in coordination with agencies such as the NDRF and state administration, is airlifting critical supplies and conducting evacuation operations.
We have managed to complete this bridge in record time by the Madras Engineering Group of the Indian Army, the Engineer Task Force. It is now being handed over to the civil administration for their use, and this will give further impetus to the rescue operations here. This is a 190-foot bridge, Bailey Bridge, which has been constructed. We are proud of the soldiers who have managed to achieve this in record time, and I salute their effort in doing this.
We started the rescue operations, and seeing the gravity of the situation and in consultation with the other authorities who were there on the spot, we rushed 3 more teams. And once they reached there, the situation was not very conducive to easy work. I mean, there was a lot of rainfall, the bridge being washed away. They could not access the village. The current in the river was quite strong. So they had to basically establish a base. So they used a very difficult technique, which is a rope rescue technique.
In northern India, heavy rains have caused significant disruption. In the national capital, Delhi, waterlogging due to Wednesday's downpour led to school closures on Thursday and a red alert for continued heavy rain. Several flights were cancelled, impacting tourists and travellers. In Himachal Pradesh, cloud bursts have resulted in heavy rain and flooding, with over 20 people reported missing. India's Home Minister Amit Shah has spoken to Chief Minister Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu, assuring all possible assistance from the centre.
ये जो शिमला डिस्ट्रिक्ट के रामपुर कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में
In Sarpara village of Rampur constituency in Simla district, there has been severe damage. So far, 36 people have been reported missing there. National Disaster Response Force and SDRF, the sub-divisional magistrate and other administrative officials reached the spot and carried out the rescue operation.
In Uttarakhand, heavy rains have triggered landslides in hilly areas, claiming 5 lives. Overflowing rivers have washed away roads in several places across the state. The state chief minister has held an urgent meeting with officials to review the rescue and relief operations. Syed Absarul Hassan reports for DD India.
On Monday morning, a day before the tragic landslide in Kerala, a rain monitoring institute based in Kalpetta, Wayanad had amassed data pointing towards huge probability of landslide in the affected area. Listen in to the institute's director, Dr. C.K. Vishnu Das.
As Kerala has witnessed its worst ever landslide in terms of the casualty, here in Wayanad we are joined by Director of Hume Center for Ecology and Wildlife Biology, Dr. C.K. Vishnu Das. What exactly happened last week then? Can you explain a little bit?
So this area has a history of landslides since 1984 and later in 2020. And what happened on the 29th morning data shows about 200 mm rainfall, and the farmers, people who were measuring rainfall data told us that it is continuously raining heavily. Then we monitor rainfall by the evening. Then by the time there was 170 more, and we assume that the next day morning, if the rain continues, it will reach nearly about 600 mm. So we have set up some threshold value for each of the locations. For example, in Puthumala region, we set up 600 mm as a threshold value to trigger a landslide. That is why we evoked warning to the district administration that the rainfall crossed, nearly crossing 600 mm. No need to wait for further day to give warnings. So this information passed on to district administration as well as the district panchayat himself was gone to the location and give warnings to local.
So when exactly did you transmit this information to district?
Previous day morning around 9:30, 10, that's the time. So we transferred this information and it is available in the group itself now. Every day we generate site specific information with 5 days cumulative rainfall. So that means that in last 5 days how much rainfall has occurred. So this information is sufficient to take action by themselves.
Now in Nepal, with heavy overnight incessant rain on Tuesday, several roads along rivers and streams were filled with mud and silt, slowing traffic even till Thursday. Flood waters have impacted local communities living along the rivers and streams with significant disruption to daily life. UN Park in Lalitpur is yet inundated. Even after 2 days, flood waters have brought down businesses in Balkhu vegetable wholesale market. According to Met forecasts, it will be partly to generally cloudy throughout Nepal even on Friday. Light to moderate rain with thunder and lightning is likely to occur at some places of Koshi province, Madhesh province and Bagmati province, and at a few places in the rest of the provinces there are chances of heavy rainfall at 1 or 2 places of Kochi province, Madhesh province, Bagmati province, Gandaki and Lumbini provinces. And weather conditions are swinging to extremes around the world, from heat waves leading to forest fires to excessive rainfall leading to floods and landslides. Let's take a look at the vagaries of the weather in this report.
Unprecedented weather events are being witnessed across the globe, from forest fire to excessive rainfall leading to flooding and landslides. In Europe, fire crews in North Macedonia are battling to try and control the spread of wildfires as intense heat, strong winds and sporadic rain combine to create tinderbox conditions in the Balkans. Similarly, in Bolivia, the firefighters are battling the wildfires in Santa Cruz region, looking to contain more than 20 active fires. A large fire broke out on a hill near the Italian capital's Court of Justice and a public TV broadcasting center in Rome, forcing the evacuation of several buildings and offices. The fire was under control in the afternoon with 10 crews on the case. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva undertook an aerial survey of the Pantanal, the world's largest tropical wetland, which is suffering severely from forest fires. During his visit, Lula signed a fire prevention and firefighting protocol aimed at managing fire control to avoid further spreading and the potential ignition of new forest fires. Northeast China's Heilongjiang province was flooded after persistent rainfall on Thursday. The Ning'an section of the Mudanjiang River in Heilongjiang exceeded the alert level. A drone footage showed farmland, sheds and houses submerged in flood water. Pakistan's Lahore city was drenched in record-breaking monsoon rains on Thursday. Heavy rain caused flooding on the street, submerging roads and highways. The Pakistan Met Department has forecast torrential rains and thunderstorms across Pakistan from August 1st to 6th. Meanwhile, a sigh of relief from the heat was seen in Spain as high heat from Spain's interior draws on relatively cool Cantabrian sea temperatures, delivering sea breezes and providing cloud cover. The towns on Spain's northern coast have been enjoying relatively mild weather. In Montenegro also, the wildfires conditions were stabilizing as calmer winds eased weather conditions on the Adriatic coast. Scientific studies indicate that extreme weather events such as heat waves and large storms are likely to become more frequent or more intense with human-induced climate change. Bureau Report, DD India.
And still to come on DD News Hour. India and Vietnam are strengthening their ties. We'll be talking about that with a special guest, expert guest in just a bit.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris, and DD India brings you every heartbeat, every victory, and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama, and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis, and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now let's talk about how India and Vietnam have strengthened their strategic ties today with a plan of action as well for the coming years. We've got to talk about it with us Sanjay Bhattacharya, former secretary in India's Ministry of External Affairs. Good evening to you, Ambassador Bhattacharya. What do you make of what's happened between India and Vietnam today with that visit of the Vietnamese Prime Minister?
Well, to my mind, the relationship that India has with Vietnam has always been rather special, not only from the bilateral context, but also from the context of our partnership with the ASEAN countries, and today more so in the context of the Indo-Pacific. India and Vietnam have always had a very special relationship, which was extended to a comprehensive strategic partnership in 2016 during the visit of Prime Minister Modi there. What we saw happen this time was that they have given concrete shape in terms of an action plan for 2024 to 28. And of course, it kind of embraces a number of memoranda of understanding that have been concluded, ranging from collaboration in extension of lines of credit, capacity building, judicial cooperation, and also preservation of historical sites, agricultural cooperation, and so on. But I think also what is very important in this context is the kind of defense cooperation that is thought to be further expanded and extended. We already have a very strong relationship. So as we look at the geopolitics of the region, the kind of instability that there is today in the South China Sea, also known as the East Sea by the Vietnamese, and the kind of tensions that are abound in that region, Prime Minister's call for development rather than expansion is a very significant one, and to do it with a very close partner in Vietnam has special significance.
Definitely. Let's talk about this sort of a call that the Prime Minister made, apart from the fact that India has been contributing for some time to enhancing the overall security and particularly maritime security of Vietnam. How do you see these $2 lines of credit amounting to $300 million? Do you think it's an incremental step that will help Vietnam shore up its defenses even further in terms of the challenges that it faces from China there?
You know, we have a very comprehensive dialogue with the Vietnamese, and part of that is the defense collaboration dialogue. And this has been discussed for some time, and I'm so happy and pleased that they have reached understanding at this visit to take that to the next level. We already have collaboration in terms of, ship visits, collaborations in terms of some exchanges between the defense forces. Now there is talk not only of defense production, but also in the maritime defense domain. What this means is that the kind of collaboration that we have on the western side of India, in our extended neighborhood in the west with many countries, and which we've also developed with certain countries in the ASEAN, is now going to get into the South China Sea region as well. And this would be very significant. As you know, we already have very close partnerships with other countries in the region, with Indonesia in the south, with the Philippines further east of the South China Sea, and of course, as you go further into the East China Sea with Japan and Korea. So what we are seeing today is that the web of relations that India is developing, particularly in the maritime domain, as you know, Prime Minister has said that we must have a free and open Indo-Pacific region, and that there must be freedom of navigation, and it must be considered global commons for the South China Sea, this is a significant step forward.
Mm-hmm. And how has the message of delivered by India been delivered as well, when we see that this joint inauguration of a military facility, a software park, an army software park in Vietnam that India has helped bring up?
Well, both countries have strengths in the IT sector. The Vietnamese, as you know, have emerged as a very dominant partner in the ASEAN region on IT-enabled services, business processing, and are now going up the value chain. So this collaboration between India and Vietnam, which will bring about greater cooperation between the two sides, bring about cooperation between the two sides to jointly work on various projects, bring about technology and innovation, is a significant step. The other significance of this is that it's with the university, which has a very strong army component of the Vietnamese side, and therefore this is going to leverage a certain segment of the Vietnamese polity and economy in that particular endeavor, a joint endeavor, as I might say.
Okay, let's talk about trade as well. It's about $15 billion between the two countries. Slight imbalance because of the kind of trade pact that we have with ASEAN, where perhaps, although the call today was given by Prime Minister Modi that it should be renegotiated, reworked soon, but perhaps I think at another forum, the Vietnamese Prime Minister said that perhaps there could be a separate trade pact between India and Vietnam at a bilateral level.
As you know, we have an India-ASEAN FTA.
Yes.
And it's a very constructive and very good document. It has led to significant increase in trade volumes, and it has led to great advantages to the ASEAN partners. With some of the ASEAN countries, we also have separate bilateral FTAs. This has been the practice for some time, and it would also make sense because, as you know, the review of the India-ASEAN FTA is not due for another 2 years almost. And so if we can work out, if we can do an early harvest of the low-hanging fruit, so to say, because if you notice what has happened in the last couple of years is that while Vietnamese exports have grown significantly, the Indian exports have not kept pace. And therefore, it is necessary to have a relook at that. Secondly, I think the nature of value chains have also changed, and therefore the supply chains that we are engaged with the Vietnamese and the ASEAN bloc has also changed significantly, and therefore there is merit in looking at a separate bilateral thing in addition to the ASEAN-wide FTA that we have. So these will definitely add greater volume and will give greater momentum, not only to the trade relations, because in today's context, what it will also link up with is with investment opportunities and transfers of technology.
All right, sounds good. Let's hope that the two countries make progress on these fronts in the coming days as well, and they have made significant progress already as far as strengthening overall ties are concerned, these comprehensive strategic ties that India and Vietnam have. Thank you for joining us, Prasar Bharati. Now, President of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Dennis Francis, has hailed India's achievements and used it as an example to illustrate the impact of technology and innovation on the lives of people in developing countries. He praised India's efforts during his address at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations on accelerating progress towards zero hunger for current and future generations on Tuesday.
Rural farmers in India who never had a relationship with the banking system are now able to transact all their businesses on their smartphone. They pay their bills, they receive payment for orders. 800 million people lifted out of poverty. Because there's a high level of internet penetration in India. Almost everyone has a cell phone. That is not the case in many parts of the global south.
Bangladesh on Thursday banned Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami, its student wing, Bangladesh Islami Chhatra Shibir, and all its associate bodies as political parties and organizations. The Home Ministry of Bangladesh issued a notification banning Jamaat and Shibir under the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2009. The notification will become effective immediately. Today is World Lung Cancer Day, observed annually since 2012 on the 1st of August. This day aims to raise awareness about lung cancer. The theme for this year's World Lung Cancer Day is Close and Care Gap. Everyone deserves access to cancer care. The day's message emphasizes the importance of preventing, curing and providing equitable medical services to everyone in society.
Lung cancer is the deadliest cancer among all the cancers. The most common cause of lung cancer is smoking. Then the second cause is pollution. The symptoms of the lung cancer are chest pain, shortness of breath, cough, sometimes cough with blood, hoarseness of voice, loss of weight, loss of appetite. If someone has such symptoms, they should visit a lung specialist or pulmonologist to get early diagnosis and early treatment.
Now let's get you all the updates from the Paris Olympics 2024. Indian shooter Swapnil Kale has won a historic bronze medal in the men's 50-meter rifle three-position shooting event at Paris 2024 Olympics, marking India's first ever Olympic medal in this event. His journey from a railway ticket collector to an Olympian is inspiring. Take a look.
Indian shooter Swapnil Kale scripted history, securing India's third medal at the Paris Olympics shooting competition after finishing third in the men's 50-meter rifle 3 positions. This historic triumph made him the first Indian shooter to win an Olympic medal in the men's 50-meter rifle 3 positions. The 29-year-old finished third with 195 points in standing after 156.8 in the prone and 153.3 points in the kneeling rounds.
First, I congratulate to Manu and Sarabjit that they won the medal, and because of them I feel like some positive energy that I can also win the medal for the India and make proud, to make a proud in Olympics.
Kale has always been a promising shooter, but at 29 he was still struggling to win that one medal that would establish him as a top shooter. He had finished fourth in two of the most important events of his career, the 2022 World Championships and the Asian Games. The second one was especially heartbreaking. During the qualifying round, he set an Asian record. In the final, he was in a comfortable lead before he shot a 7.6 and missed out on a podium finish. Born into a farming family in Maharashtra, 29-year-old Kale began his journey with sports at Krida Prabodhini, the Maharashtra government sports development program, in 2009. Swapnil has been competing in international events since 2012, but he had to wait another 12 years to make his Olympics debut at the Paris Games. Kale draws inspiration from MS Dhoni, as he too is a railway ticket collector like the cricket icon was early in his career. Being calm and patient are prerequisites for a shooter, and those two traits are also the hallmark of Dhoni's personality. It is therefore no surprise that Kale relates. Kale has come a long way since making his mark in 2015 when he beat the big guns Olympic medalist Naran and Singh to win his first senior national title. A top 3 finish in the 50-meter rifle 3 positions final have now put Kale in the list of high achieves in Indian sport. With years of hard work, struggle and patience, Kale has now etched his name in history. Naran Singh's report, DD India, Paris.
India's President Draupadi Murmu has congratulated Olympic bronze medalist Swapnil Kale on social media platform X. She wrote, and I quote, "Heartiest congratulations to Swapnil Kale for winning bronze medal at Paris Olympics. He has become the first Indian to win a medal in men's 50-meter rifle 3 positions category. It is for the first time that India has won 3 medals in shooting events in the same Olympic Games. Entire shooting contingent has done India proud. I extend my best wishes to all our players for the upcoming events. I wish Swapnil Kale wins more laurels in the future." And Prime Minister Narendra Modi also took to social media platform X to extend his heartfelt wishes to Swapnil. He wrote, and I quote again, "Exceptional performance by Swapnil Kale. Congrats to him for winning the bronze medal in the men's 50-meter rifle 3 positions at the Paris Olympics 2024. His performance is special because he's shown great resilience and skill. He is also the first Indian athlete to win a medal in this category. Every Indian is filled with happiness." India's Sports Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia also congratulated Swapnil. He wrote on X again, and I quote him, "Congratulations to Swapnil Kale for winning a historic bronze medal in the men's 50-meter rifle 3 positions at the Paris Olympics 2024. The first Indian to win a medal in the Olympics in this event. Your achievement makes us incredibly proud." And India's campaign in the men's doubles badminton was dealt a big blow. Indian doubles superstars Satvik Sairaj Ranki Reddy and Chirag Shetty were knocked out in the quarterfinals in what could be called as a big jolt to India's medal hopes. Satvik Chirag were one of India's gold medal contenders at the Paris Olympics. The Indian pair lost to Malaysian pair of Aaron Chia and So Wui Yeek, 21-13, 14-21 and 16-21. The Indian pair were ahead in the match after winning the first game, 21-13, but the Malaysians clawed back in the second and third games. In boxing, India's Nikhat Zareen's hopes of winning a medal on her Summer Games debut ended prematurely after she bowed out of the Paris Olympics boxing tournament on Thursday. The unseeded Nikhat Zareen, a 2-time world champion, lost to Wu Yu of the People's Republic of China by unanimous decision in the round of 16 of the women's 50 kg boxing event. And India lost 1-2 against Belgium in their Paris Olympics 2024 Pool B hockey encounter. India took the lead in the 18th minute after Abhishek made a solo run and found the bottom right corner of the Belgian goal. But Belgium then scored twice. India will next face Australia on Friday. An Indian badminton star, Lakshya Sen, secured a resounding victory against his ferry countryman HS Pranab and advanced to the quarterfinals of the Olympics badminton tournament in Paris on Thursday. The 22-year-old sensation from Almora displayed his prowess on the court, winning in straight games with a score of 21-12, 21-6. Sen's impressive performance lasted a mere 39 minutes and showcased his dominance over world number 13, Pranab. And for more, let's take you across to DD India's Naran Singh, joining us live from Paris. Good evening to you, Naran. Now, how would you sum up the day in Paris so far for India? A tough day?
Good evening, Gautam. If we talk about today's days, we can say that few milestones were achieved, and apart from that, many heartbreaks we witnessed today. If we talk about the milestone, the way Swapnil Kale won third medal for India in shooting and overall third medal in this edition of the Paris Games. It's a monumental and a watershed moment for the Indian shooting, so far winning the 3 medals, especially in the 50-meter rifle 3-position event, and it's an event there where in which India is not dominating. And in the past we saw that especially in the rifle 50-meter 3-position, India was there only for the participation, and qualifying was also very difficult in this event. But Swapnil Kale showed that now India is also doing good in those events where we are just going for the participation. All in all, a fantastic day for the Indian shooting. And if we talk about Lakshya Sen, he too, we can say that he picked the pace at the right time. If you take a look at his performance just 6 months back before the Olympics, he was struggling because of the multiple reasons. He had a nose surgery, and in the last 6 months we saw multiple first round exits for the Lakshya Sen, but as the Olympic approach, he improved his form. At one point of time, his ranking for the race to the Paris Olympic was around 24-25. And if a country has 2 shuttlers who are between 1 to 16, then only 2 shuttlers from National Olympic Committee can qualify. But within a few, we can say that few weeks time, he just improved his form. He played some important tournaments and came in the bracket of 1 to 16 and to be there in the Paris Olympics. And now he is looking one of the best medal prospects for India in the Paris game. But talking about the heartbreaks, definitely the pair of Satvik Sairaj and Chirag Shetty, we were hoping that they are the gold medal contenders for India in this game, but they were unlucky, and we can say that today was not their day in the office. And in boxing, Nikha Jarin too, she is a world champion, and we were hoping that she will be there in the next round and secure a medal for India, because if she had entered in the semi-final, in the contact sports, a medal for India. And especially if you talk about and shooting, the way Sifth Kaur Samra, she was also a bright medal prospect. In the Asian Games, she created the world record in the 50-meter rifle 3-position. So these were the heartbreaks, but many events are lined up when Manu Bhaker will go for the 25-meter rifle pistol shooting, and his shooting, Asha Singh is there, Vijay Veer Sidhu is there. So many more expectations are there. We are hoping that as the tournament, as the Olympic Games will progress, we will get more medals from other disciplines also. Yes, certainly, Naran. Let's keep our hopes up and wish all the best to all the competitors from India and others as well. There have been several great performances. We'll perhaps have time later to talk about it. Thanks for the moment for joining us. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download it now. We'll be back with more news and updates as a break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.